Book 7. We left off about pages 356, 57. And in this book, in fact, in this book and several others that follow it, Odysseus is relating his story, is relating his adventures. And he's talking here, 356 and such, talking about Calypso. And then they bring up, or his host, Alcinous, brings up on 357, about 320, Nausicaa. And Alcinous, Nausicaa's father, king of the Phaeacians, I just want to say Phaeacians, but that wouldn't be right, says, "My child's good judgment failed in this, not to have brought you in her company home. Once you approached her, you became her charge." He's saying, when you first met my daughter, she should have led you straightly to me. Okay? Why didn't she again?
She said the mom had all the power.
Okay.
And that she didn't, she was at a marriageable age, so she didn't want to give townspeople the wrong idea by leading them into the city.
Yeah, she doesn't want people to start talking. Right? Here she is with this old vagabond, wastrel, bum, etc. And Odysseus even says, no, I don't think that would be appropriate. Nausicaa does say, it's my mother you need to appeal to, not the king. Okay? So Alcinous tells Odysseus here, my daughter acted unwisely. Why? Once you approached her, you became her charge. That is, you were her responsibility. Odysseus, don't blame the princess. She did tell me to follow with her maids, but I would not. I felt abashed and feared the sight would somehow ruffle or offend you. All of us on this earth are plagued by jealousy. He's saying that's kind of the common state of humanity, to be or become jealous. Alcinous says, not me, and I don't have any anger. He says, I'm just telling you, my daughter should be yours, and you my son-in-law, if you remained. Because of what Odysseus has told him. Okay? What he's related of his adventures so far. But Odysseus is like, no, I've got my own wife, blah, blah, blah. So we go to book 8. Okay? And Odysseus gets cleaned up. And we hear on 359, Athena now poured out her grace upon him, head to shoulders, height and mass, a splendor awesome to the eyes of the Phaeacians. She put him in a fettle to win the day, mastering every trial they set to test him, because they're going to have, it's essentially like a festival day, and Odysseus is going to take part in those. Okay? This isn't the first time, and it's not the last time, that she will pour out her grace, or as it's called in other places, her brilliance upon him. So, I'm going to skip that. We're going to skip a bit and go on to 362. They're still doing some of these sporting events, and Alcinous' son addresses Odysseus and says, come join our competition, if you are practiced as you seem to be. While a man lives, he wins no greater honor than footwork and the skill of hands can bring him. Enter our games then, ease your heart of trouble. Your journey home is not far off. That is, Odysseus has asked for a boat to help him home. Alcinous has already promised that. So he's just kind of, killing time, waiting. And Odysseus says, why do you guys challenge me? But he doesn't just say that. Notice why do you young chaps? It's kind of like, I'm an old man. Why are you challenging me? I have more in my mind than track and field. Hard days, and many have I seen and suffered. I sit here at your field meet. And then this other guy, Sirach, says, the reason being, as I see it, friend, you never learned a sport and have no skill in any of the contests of fighting men. What's he really doing there?
Agitated.
Yeah, he's agitating. He's challenging him. Oh, I think you don't want to join because you'll lose everything. You must have been the skipper of some tramp that crawled from one port to the next, jam full of chaffering hands, a tallier of cargoes, itching for gold. Not an athlete. Odysseus frowns and says, "That was uncalled for, friend. You talk like a fool. The gods deal out no gift, this one or any, birth, brains, or speech, to every man alike. In looks a man may be a shade, a spectre, and yet be master of speech, so crowned with beauty that people gaze at him with pleasure. Courteous, sure of himself, he can command assemblies, and when he comes to town, the crowds gather. A handsome man, contrariwise, that is, a handsome man, unlike the one I was just talking about, the shade, may lack grace and good sense in everything he says." What's Odysseus' point? And it's really the first time we've heard this idea in the Odyssey, and we're 8 books in. We're a third of the way in. Appearances don't tell us everything. Okay? A handsome man, contrariwise, may lack grace and good sense in everything he says. You now, for instance. In other words, you're a handsome man with your fine physique, a god's. You have an empty noddle. You look great, but you're brainless. I find my heart inside my ribs aroused by your impertinence. I am no stranger to contest, as you fancy. I rated well when I could count on youth in my 2 hands. Now pain has cramped me. And what does he do? He leaps out, picks up a discus, and throws it farther than any of the others. Okay? Discus, today, a round metal plate, thicker in the middle than the outside. Okay? It's not shaped like a saucer. It's, generally a couple inches thick in the middle and maybe ½ inch thick at the outside. They go by varying weights, but a discus that Odysseus is throwing is probably going to be somewhere between 5 and 15 pounds. Okay? He outthrows all of the young bucks. We're told, line 200. The spinning disc soared out light as a bird beyond all others, disguised now as a Phaeacian. Athena staked it, that is, she measures the distance and says, even a blind man friend could judge this, finding with his fingers one discus quite alone beyond the cluster. So there's a whole bunch of disci all laying around in the turf, and then Odysseus is probably a good 20, 30 yards beyond that. So he says, okay, see if you guys can match that. So he joins in the competition and essentially beats them all. Okay, I'm going to skip. Well, actually, do I want to skip all that? We get the story of Hephaistos catching Aries in bed with Aphrodite on 366 and following. No, take that back. 365 and following, which is something, if we were reading all of the Metamorphoses, I believe it shows up in there also. So I wanted to skip to, I think we're actually skipping the rest of book 8. Yeah. Pick up with, why did I fold that page back? Book 9, oh, that's right. Book 9, we have Odysseus talking about the lotus eaters, the island of the lotus eaters. What happens when you eat the lotus flower? What do you lose? Your memory? What goes along with that?
Your desire to go home.
Yeah, your desire to do anything, really. You lose all ambition. You just kind of, sit there and go, for the rest of your life. Okay? So we get that related. And then on 376 and following, he tells us the story of his encounter with Polyphemus. And Polyphemus, his tribe or his kind, is probably a spelled a way you've never seen before, Cyclops. Similarly, when we get to the witch whose island he goes on, who transforms his men into pigs, that's spelled Kirki. That's because The actual C that is often or the letter that gets translated usually in text as C has the hard k sound. You know, the Boston Celtics, for example, it's mispronounced. Should be Celtics. Okay? The C is a hard k. That's why it's Cyclops and Kirke, etc. So he talks about the whole journey, or the whole instance with Polyphemus, and what, I don't know that I want to call Odysseus stupid, but what unwise thing does he do in his encounter with Polyphemus? Tells him his name. Okay? He doesn't tell him his name, notice at the beginning. He tells him his name at the end. You know, who is Polyphemus? Poseidon's son. What does Polyphemus not show Odysseus that Odysseus and his men receive from Alcinous, and that Odysseus receives from Eumaeus, and I think you could even say to some extent Odysseus receives from Calypso.
Hospitality.
Exactly. But Polyphemus is the son of a god. Why doesn't he have to abide by that code of hospitality?
Doesn't he say he disagrees with it just because it's Zeus's rules or something to that effect? He just doesn't agree with the political correctness of it.
Ooh, that's a way I hadn't thought of it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So what does he do? When Polyphemus gets back to his cave and he finds men there, how does he keep them, first of all?
Usually traps them.
He puts the big stone over the cave. Stone so large that humans can't move it. And what does he do that evening with two of the men that he catches? He doesn't even bother cooking them. He just eats them. Okay? I shouldn't ask this question because I'm not sure off the top of my head. How many men does Polyphemus eat in total? I want to say it's 6.
I thought it was 6.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 6. Okay? How do Odysseus and his men escape? First, what do they do in the evening while he's asleep, drunk? They stab his eye out, okay, with a
Spear.
yeah, but it's not really spear. It's like a mast for a ship that they have to cut down to size, sharpen, dip it, burn the point of it. So they stab his eye out, and how do they escape?
He tied himself to the bottom.
Odysseus ties his men to the underside of these ramps because these sheep are huge. And then Odysseus holds on. Okay? Notice how he protects his men. We're going to get to the scene. And the Scylla and Charybdis, or Scylla and Charybdis, and the Sirens. We talked with the quiz. You know, with the Sirens, he stuffs all his men's ears with wax. What happens to him? They tie him to the mast, and he hears what the sirens sing. He doesn't relate what the sirens sing. Okay? Yeah, and there, page 383. I still haven't figured this out. Polyphemus asks, "Who are you?" And he answers 425 or so. Nobody. Nohbdy. Every other translation translates that as nobody. Nobody. Okay? Okay, book 10.
Oh, you mean every other translation of the Odyssey?
Yeah, of the Odyssey. Spells it nobody, not nobody. Okay? Because it's, why does Odysseus do that?
So then whenever he's asked if anybody's tricking him, he has to say, "Nobody's tricked me."
Nobody tricked me. Nobody poked my eye out. And so all the other Cyclops go, well, if nobody did it, then, you're fine, essentially. Because they're yelling to him, asking him what's wrong when he is crying out in pain. All right? So, book 10, we get Odysseus's, what's the word I want? Experience, interaction, adventures with Ioles, or Iolos, god of the winds, essentially, who gives him a bag full of wind. And what do his men do after they've been on the sea for a couple of nights? Why do they open it? Notice what his men are thinking there about Odysseus. Well, the captain gets everything and we get nothing. Okay? They open it, they let all the wind out, they go back. I'm trying to skip a bunch so that we can get to book 12, where it gets, by my lights at least, a bit more interesting. Book 10, he goes to Kirkes Island in Eurylochus has the premonition, if you want. His men get turned to swine, and I think it is Hermes comes and tells Kirke to relieve them. Odysseus gets her to do that, and they leave Kirkes Island. Eurylochus dies and is buried. Let's pick up book 11, because this is where it gets a little more interesting. Before he leaves, I want to say Circe. I want to say Circe because that's what I'm used to. Before he leaves Kirke, what does she tell him he has to do? It's kind of a prophecy. He's got to go to the land of the dead, see his mother, speak to Achilles, but more importantly, he has to speak to the prophet in Greek literature, Tiresias the blind seer. Okay? So, he makes his way to the edge of the world and goes into death, and we're going to pick up with, let's see, he sees Elpenor, who's one of the heroes in the Trojan War, and 404. He sees Tiresias. And I'll make sure I'm thinking of the right. Nope, this is Anticlea, his mother. Okay, this is Tiresias speaking. Right about in the middle, page 404, starting around, 96 or so. So he says, before I can speak, you need to give me a drop of the blood, the blood offering. So he says, son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master of landways and seaways, why leave the blazing sun, O man of woe, to see the cold dead and the joyless region? Stand clear, put up your sword, let me but taste the blood, I shall speak true. He says, at this I stepped aside, let him taste. And Tiresias says, a fair wind and the honey lights of home are all you seek. Okay, he's prophesying. He's reading Odysseus' mind kind of here. But anguish lies ahead. The God who thunders on the land prepares it not to be shaken from your track. Implacable, in rancor for the son whose eye you blinded. In other words, you're going to have a lot of hardship to go through because of what you did to Polyphemus. One narrow strait may take you through his blows. Denial of yourself, restraint of shipmates. What's that referring to? The sirens. Denial of yourself. Your shipmates will be restrained. You don't have to worry about them. When you make landfall on Thrinacia first and quit the violet sea, dark on the land, you'll find the grazing herds of Helios, by whom all things are seen, all speech is known. Avoid these kind. Leave those cattle alone. Hold fast to your intent, and hard seafaring brings you all to Ithaca. But if you raid the beeves, I see destruction for ship and crew. Though you survive alone, bereft of all companions, lost for years, under strange sail shall you come home, to find your own house filled with trouble. Okay? Insolent men eating your livestock as they court your lady. Yes, You will make those men atone in blood, but after you've dealt out death in open combat or by stealth to all the suitors, go overland on foot, take an oar until one day you come where men have lived with meat unsalted, never known the sea, nor seen sea-going ships with crimson bows and oars that fledge light holes for dipping light. The spot will soon be plain to you, and I can tell you how some passerby will say, what winnowing fan is that upon your shoulder? Halt and implant your smooth oar in the turf, and make fair sacrifice to Lord Poseidon, a ram, a bull, a great buck boar. Turn back, carry up pure hecatombs at home. To all wide heaven's lords, the undying gods, to each in order. Then a sea-born death, soft as this hand of mist, will come upon you when you are wearied out with rich old age. So, you're going to land on the island of Helios. Don't touch the cows. Your men are going to. They're all going to die. You will make it home. You will find trouble in your own palace, he says. You will deal with that problem. And then you have to do this. When he says, go overland on foot and take an oar until one day you come where men have lived with meat unsalted, never known the sea. What's he saying there? Before you die, you have got to take a voyage, walking, okay, and perform this sacrifice to the gods. And only then will Odysseus receive what? A sea-born death, soft as this hand of mist. Okay? Only then will you have a peaceful end to your life. Your country folk in blessed peace around you. And all this shall be just as I foretell. Okay? So, Odysseus says, I see my mother's ghost. Can I speak with her? And he asks her, line 185 or so. He says, tell me of father. Tell me of the son I left behind. Have they still my place, my honors, or have other men assumed them? Was his mother dead when he left 20 years ago? No, she was still alive. Why does she die? Just old age? Grief. Grief, because he hasn't returned. So he says, is Laertes still alive? Is Telemachus still alive? Do they not say that I shall come no more? Who's the they he's referring to? The other men who have assumed them. Okay? Tell me of my wife. How runs her thought? Still with her child? Is she still thinking of Telemachus? Still keeping our domains? Is she still ruling kind of from our house? Or is she bride again to the best of the Achaeans? And his mother, whose name just jumped out of my mind, Anticlea, says, still with her child indeed she is, poor heart, still in your palace hall. Forlorn her nights and days go by, her life used up in weeping, but no man takes your honored place. Telemachus has care of all your garden plots and fields, holds the public honor of a magistrate, feasting and being feasted. Okay? So Telemachus is still held in high regard. But your father is country bound and comes to town no more. He owns no bedding, rugs, or fleecy mantles, but lies down winter nights among the slaves, rolled in old cloaks for cover near the embers. Or when the heat comes out at the end of summer, the fallen leaves all around his vineyard plot, heaped into windows, makes his lowly bed. He lies even so with aching heart. Why does she tell him this? Okay, the obvious reason, first of all, is because he asks. But why does Laertes live seemingly in such squalor? Sorry, sleep. Penelope sends him away. For what reason? So he doesn't see the ruin of Odysseus' hall at the hands and mouths of the suitors. So she says, I too pined away, so doom befell me. My loneliness for you, Odysseus, for your kind heart and counsel, gentle Odysseus, took my own life away. Okay? Okay, we're going to skip a bunch again. He's speaking with Alcinous. And Alcinous tells him, after Odysseus has finished relating his problems, line 405 or so, 404 maybe. You speak with art, but your intent is honest. You speak with art. He's saying you speak, with rhetorical flourishes. You speak, he's going to say, like a poet. The Argive troubles and your own troubles, you told as a poet would. The Argive troubles, the troubles that accompanied those who went with you, and all the Greeks who went to Troy, and your own troubles as well, you told as a poet would, a man who knows the world. But now come tell me this. Did you meet any of your peers? Any of your great companions in the Trojan War? And he says, yes. Okay. He talks about Agamemnon. He talks about Achilles. Agamemnon, page 413, line 437 or so. O son of Atreus, illustrious Lord Marshal Agamemnon, what was the doom that brought you low in death? Were you at sea, aboard ship, and Poseidon blew up a wicked squall? So at the time when Odysseus is in the underworld, he has not heard about Agamemnon's death. And Agamemnon says, skipping a few lines at the beginning of that, line 450, it was Hephaistos who designed my death, he and my heartless wife, and killed me after feeding me like an ox felled at the trough. That was my miserable end, and with me my fellows butchered like so many swine killed for some troop. In your day you've seen men, hundreds, die in war. But think of us fallen, all our throats cut, wine bowl brimming, tables laden on every side, while blood ran smoking over the whole floor. In my extremity I heard Cassandra, the Trojan seeress, prophetess, Priam's daughter, piteously crying as the traitorous Clytemnestra made to kill her along with me. Cassandra was one of the people Agamemnon brought back, okay, from the Trojan War. What doom did Cassandra have given her by the gods? That is, she was damned to do what in her life, and what accompanied that? She was damned to be a prophetess, but no one would ever believe her. She always spoke the truth, but no one ever believed the prophecies she spoke. She told Agamemnon, and we'll see this when we read the play, I think next week. She told him what was going to happen. Didn't believe her. So he says, lost my place. I heaved up from the ground and got my hands around the blade, but she eluded me, that whore, nor would she close my two eyes as my soul swam to the underworld or shut my lips. There is no being more fell, more bestial than a wife in such an action, and what an action that one planned. The murder of her husband and her lord. Okay? So, when Odysseus does finally land on Ithaca, and he's put under disguise, we're going to get to it in 17 or 18, he has a couple of long interviews with his wife. Why? Because once he heard about what happened to Agamemnon, he has to test Penelope. He has to make sure that she still loves him and is, quote-unquote, loyal to him. Great God, I thought my children and my slaves, 475 or so, at least would give me welcome, but that woman plotting a thing so low defiled herself and all her sex, all women yet to come, even those few who may be virtuous. Okay? He says, my own son, 499, my own lady never let me glut my eyes on my own son, but bled me to death first. I didn't even get to see Orestes. See, Orestes is the exact same age as Telemachus. exact same age. He was a newborn when Agamemnon left. One thing I will advise on second thought, stow it away and ponder it. Land your ship in secret on your island. Give no warning. The day of faithful wives is gone forever. So he's taking Agamemnon's advice when he lands in secret and in disguise. Okay? Then he speaks with Achilles, and I'm going to skip that. Go on to beginning of book 12. He sees 421. Shut up. He's recounting events with Kirke, and she says, okay, so all those trials are over. Line 40. Listen with care to this now, and a god will arm your mind. Square in your ship's path are, and she tells him about the sirens, or however you pronounce Sirenes, crying beauty to witch men. Okay, she tells him what to do. Plug their ears up with wax, and keep yours free. And then 423, he asks her, okay, so that's one problem I'll overcome. How do I get by Scylla and Charybdis? Okay. Scylla and Charybdis are usually interpreted as being natural occurrences. Like, I think it's Scylla. I always get these two confused. Scylla's the whirlpool, and Charybdis is the thing on the land, or is it the other way around? Yeah, I think it's the other way around. Charybdis is the whirlpool, and Scylla is the thing on the island. Because she says, 1:18, hug the cliff of Scylla, take your ship through on a racing stroke, better to moor 6 men than lose them all. These are supposed to be the Straits of Messina, mentioned in your footnote number 8. Okay, and then Charybdis is a whirlpool. So he finds out how to get past that. And then she says, then you're going to come to the island of Helios, where the fine herds are. Leave the herds alone. Give those kind, line 150, a wide berth. Keep your thoughts intent upon your course for home, and a hard seafaring brings you all to Ithaca. She again prophesies if you raid the beeves, that is the cattle, you're going to have additional trouble. He eventually leaves. Page 428. He goes back to the ship, and he tells his men, shipmates, grieving and weary though you are, listen, I had forewarning from Tiresias and Kirke too. Both told me I must shun this island of the sun, the world's delight. Nothing but fatal trouble shall we find here. Pull away then, put the land astern. And Eurylochus cries out, are you flesh and blood, Odysseus, to endure than a man can? Do you never tire? God, look at you. Iron is what you're made of. We're all half dead with weariness. And here you say we can't land. You say put out to sea, and it's nighttime. Wind just as before, but wandering now and lost. Sudden storms can rise at night and swamp ships without trace. Eurylochus is saying, Lord, we're going to die. Where is your shelter? 341. If some stiff gale blows up from south or west, the winds that break up shipping every time when seamen flout the Lord God's will. Okay. And Odysseus says, sharply I answered without hesitation, Eurylochus, they are with you to a man. That is, the crew agrees with you. I am alone outmatched. Let this whole company swear me a great oath. Any herd of cattle or flock of sheep here found shall go unharmed. No one shall slaughter out of wantonness ram or heifer. All shall be content with what the goddess Kirke put aboard. So they leave Kirke's island. She tells them what's going to happen. They've been at sea. They've suffered through storms. They want to go to shore and lodge for a night. Odysseus says, no, we can't. Why? Because it'll be Helios' island. He knows what's going to happen. He tells the men not to take the sheep. He goes to sleep. They take the sheep. Line 400. 401. Now on the shore, Eurylochus made his insidious plea. Comrades, he said, you've gone through everything. Listen to what I say. All deaths are hateful to us, mortal wretches, but famine is the most pitiful, the worst end that a man can come to. When he says you've gone through everything, he means we've been through hell and back again. He also means we've been through all our stores. There's nothing left to eat. Come, we'll cut out the noblest of these cattle for sacrifice to the gods who own the sky. Even though we've been told not to kill the cattle, we'll kill some and we'll offer the best to the gods. They'll like that. And once at home in the old country of Ithaca, if ever that day comes, we'll build a costly temple and adorn it with every beauty for the Lord of Noon. That is, the God will be angry with us, but we'll build him the biggest temple he's ever seen. It'll be okay. If he flares up over his heifers lost, wishing our ship destroyed, and if the gods make cause with him, that is, if the gods join with him, then I say, better open your lungs to a big sea once for all than waste to skin and bones on a lonely island. Better to die quickly in the ocean than to gradually waste away. And they all say, we agree. 433 or so. Odysseus says, just then my slumber left me in a rush. He'd been sound asleep and he suddenly wakes up. My eyes opened and I went down the seaward path. No sooner had I caught sight of our black hole than savory odors of burnt fat eddied around me. And I cried, O Father Zeus and gods in bliss forever, you made me sleep away this day of mischief. Notice, it's your fault. Why? Because if I hadn't been asleep, my men wouldn't have done this. O cruel drowsing in the evil hour, here they sat, and the great work they contrived. In Lampetia in her long gown, goes to Helios and says, they've killed your cows. He appeals to Zeus. Zeus says, peace. Shine on among the gods, shine over mortals in the fields of grain. Let me throw down one white hot bolt and make splinters of their ship in the wine dark sea. And that's exactly what happens. And Odysseus learns all that interchange with Zeus and Helios from Calypso later on. Okay? So, book 13. Another strange island, or one more strange island as it calls, or as it says. So he's still relating. Now from books 5 so far through this, he's all on the island of the, how are you pronounce the name? The Phaeacians. He's just telling stories. He's recounting everything that's happened. All right? So, page 437. Odysseus is on the boat with the Phaeacians, and bottom of 436, top of 437, he's sound asleep. The sailors lift him sound asleep, deposit him on dry ground, put all of the treasure they're giving him around him. Okay? He stays asleep all during this time. It's an enchanted sleep. They get back in their boat to head back to Phaeacia. And Zeus prays to Poseidon, 147, I guess, something like that. Father of gods, will the brighter mortals ever pay me respect again if mortals do not? How will you gods give me any honor if even the little puny mortals don't? Phaeacians too, my own blood. I thought Odysseus should in time regain his home. In other words, I didn't mean to kill him. I wasn't going to never let him go home. I had no mind to rob him of that day. No, you promised it, being so inclined. I just thought he should be made to suffer. I hope it's in the passage we have. We're going to read Aristotle's Poetics. And in the Poetics, he talks about tragedy. And he says one of the qualities of tragedy, or one of the characteristics of tragedy, is that we've got to see a great man suffer. Okay? Odysseus is a tragic hero in that sense. We see a great man, to some extent, not because of his own faults, okay, suffer. Aristotle's going to say the great person suffers because of a fault. We'll talk about what the tragic flaw is when we get there. So, Poseidon goes on. These islanders have shipped him homeward, sleeping soft. On Ithaca with gifts untold of bronze and gold and fine cloth to his shoulder. Never from Troy had he borne off such booty if he had got home safe with all his share. If he hadn't had all the problems caused by me, he wouldn't have arrived home with as much riches. So he says to Poseidon, Zeus responds, why do you grumble? The immortal gods show you no less esteem. If the mortal captain, overcome by his own pride of strength, cuts or defies you, are you not always free to take reprisal? Act as your wrath requires and as you will. And as the Phaeacian cutter gets into its harbor, he turns it to stone. Okay? Because Zeus says, 180, here is how I should do it, little brother. When all who watch upon the wall have caught sight of the ship, that is, as the Phaeacians are looking for the return of the boat that took Odysseus away, let her be turned to stone. An island like a ship just off the bay. Mortals may gape at that for generations, but throw no mountain around the seaport city. That is, don't enclose it so that it can never be visited. So Alcinous says, this present doom upon the ship, on me, my father prophesied in the olden time. If we gave safe conveyance to all passengers, we should incur Poseidon's wrath, he said, whereby one day a fair ship would come to great grief at the gods' hands. From this point on, he says, we make an end henceforth of taking in our ships castaways who may land upon Scaria. They're going to offer sacrifices to Poseidon, ask for his mercy. Meanwhile, back in Ithaca, Odysseus wakes up, but doesn't recognize his own land. Pallas Athena, Zeus's daughter, lines 224, 222, poured a gray mist all around him, hiding him from common sight, for she had things to tell him and wished no one to know him. Okay? So, Zeus doesn't recognize the land. Some of that reason is because of this mist that she puts around him. The mist isn't only stopping others from seeing him, it's stopping him to some extent from seeing properly. So he wants to know, where am I? Well, the Phaeacians promised to take him to his own land. So he says, these should be still in Phaeacian hands, and I uncumbered, free to find some other open-hearted prince who might be kind and give me passage. My lords and captains of Phaeacia were not those decent men they seemed, not honorable, landing me in this unknown country. Does Odysseus know every square inch of his island? That's what he's implying. Notice, he immediately assumes the worst. Is that hospitable? To assume the worst about your hosts? They were his hosts while he was in their boat. He says, no, by God, they swore to take me home to Ithaca and did not. Well, Zeus repay them. Zeus, patron of petitioners. So he looks through his gear. He realizes, I've got all the treasure they gave me, so they didn't steal from me. And he breaks down in tears. Athena appears to him. Need to go faster. Athena appears to him, dressed as a young man, or in appearance as a young man. And Odysseus says, you're the first person I've seen. Advise me. What is this land and realm? Who are the people? And Athena says, skipping a whole bunch of her response, line 290, for these blessings, friend, the name of Ithaca hath made its way even as far as Troy, and they say Troy lies far beyond Achaia. You are home, Odysseus. Okay. Next page, 441. Tells her he's from Crete and such. And line 337, 338. He talks about being deposited by the Phaeacians. And at this the gray-eyed goddess Athena smiled and gave him a caress, her looks being changed now. So she seemed a woman, tall and beautiful and no doubt skilled at weaving splendid things. And she answers, whoever gets around you must be sharp and guileful as a snake. Even a god might bow to you in ways of dissimulation. You chameleon, bottomless bag of tricks. Here in your own country, would you not give your stratagems a rest or stop spellbinding for an instant? You play a part as if it were your own tough skin. In other words, she's kind of deriding Odysseus for never being what?
Relaxed.
Relaxed? Okay. What does she mean by that, though?
He's always spinning a tail out of protection. For
Okay.
himself.
He's always spinning a tail out of protection for himself. And who's the quote-unquote hero of the tale? Usually. Himself. I mean, he's the central character. Okay. So what does he never do about himself? He's never himself. He's always the persona he's creating. Okay? He's always the part he's acting, she is saying. No more of this, though. Two of a kind we are, line 350. Contrivers both. How often does Athena, in her interactions with humans, appear to them as Athena? Seldom. Okay? Of all men now alive, you are the best in plots and storytelling. My own fame is for wisdom among the gods. Deceptions too. Okay, the deceptions too isn't only talking about her place among the gods. She's also saying, that's you too. After all, who came up with the idea of the Trojan horse? Odysseus did. He deceived the Trojans, which is what finally brought their downfall. Would even you have guessed that I am Pallas Athena, daughter of Zeus? I that am, notice, always with you in times of trial, a shield to you in battle. It's her way of saying, you're not alive simply because of your own strength and skill. I who made the Phaeacians befriend you to a man. The only reason you got away from them, Odysseus, is because of me. Now I am here again to counsel with you. But put away those gifts that they gave you. I planned that too. Then I can tell you of the gall and wormwood it is your lot to drink in your own hall. Patience, iron patience, you must show. So give it out to neither man nor woman that you are back from wandering. In other words, don't tell Telemachus, don't tell Penelope, don't tell Laertes. And he says, can mortal man be sure of you on sight, even a sage, O mistress of disguises? Once you were fond of me, I'm sure of that, years ago, when we made our war upon Troy. But after we'd sacked the shrines of Priam and put out to sea, God, meaning Zeus, scattered the Achaeans. I never saw you after that. Never knew you aboard with me to act as a shield, not till you gave me rich comfort in the rich hinterland of the Phaeacians. So, hear me now in your father's name. It's an appeal. For I cannot believe that I've come to Ithaca. No, it's somewhere else. Okay, what's he just said? You're lying to me. He's told the god, you're lying to me. Goddess, if you want. You made that speech only to mock me and take me in. Have I come back in truth to my own island? Always the same detachment. You're always so removed. It's kind of her way of saying, Odysseus, you're always planning 2 and 3 moves ahead. That is why I cannot fail you in your evil fortune. Cool-headed, quick, well-spoken as you are. Would not another wandering man enjoy, make haste to get home to his wife and children? Not yet. Before you hear their story, you will have proof about your wife. What proof? Proof of what? Loyalty, honesty, fidelity. I tell you, she still sits where you left her, and her days and nights go by forlorn, in lonely weeping. Now, what has that got to instill in Odysseus? Incentive to get home. What else? Way to go, Penelope. 20 years. And she's still pining over me. Okay? She had dispelled the mist, line 410, so all the island stood out clearly. Now he sees and recognizes where he is. Again, before, when she had the mist around him, the mist obscured his vision as well as the vision of those outside the mist looking towards him. Then indeed Odysseus' heart stirred with joy. He kissed the earth and prays to the nymphs. And she tells him, Athena 4:22, courage, and let the future trouble you no more. So she says, let's go bury your treasure. And then, 4:35 or so, 4:36 or 7, put your mind on a way to reach and strike a crowd of brazen upstarts. So we're going to bury your treasure, we're going to hide your treasure, but you need to start thinking, how are you going to take care of the suitors? Notice Athena doesn't go, well, now that you're safely home, I'll just go whack them all. No. All throughout this poem, the Iliad, other Greek literature, the gods say things that need to be done, but it's the humans who need to do them. 3 long years, she says, line 438, they have played master in your house. 3 years trying to win your lovely lady, making gifts as though betrothed. And she, forever grieving for you, missing your return, she's allowed them all to hope and sent messengers with promises to each. In other words, she's led them on. Why? What happens if she doesn't? She either has to choose one, or what might they do to her son? Kill him and just take her. Okay? So, Odysseus cries out. Notice what he's thinking. So hard beset an end like Agamemnon's might very likely have been mine. A bad end, bleeding to death in my own hall. You, Athena, forestalled it by telling me how the land lies. Weave me away to pay them back. Notice, he's saying, you stopped my end being like Agamemnon's by not allowing me to just go straight on back to the palace. What would have happened if he marched back to the palace? How many suitors are there? Yeah, there's a lot. 1 man against 100? Now, this is Odysseus. He could probably take on quite a few of them, but not that many. It wouldn't have been like Agamemnon's in that Penelope would be plotting with them, however. So he says, breathe valor in me, 4:53 or so, the way you did that night when we Achaeans unbound the bright veil from the brow of Troy. Fire my heart and brace me. I'll take on fighting men 300 strong if you fight at my back, immortal lady. She says, don't worry, I'll be there. You'll go forward. But let me transform you. Not a soul will know you, the clear skin of your arms and legs shriveled, your chestnut hair all gone, your body dressed in sacking that a man would gag to see, 2 eyes that were so brilliant, dirtied, contemptible you shall seem to your enemies. She doesn't mean dirty, your face is going to be dirty. She means dirty like your eyes are going to have like cataracts. They're going to have that film in them. So he's going to look really old and decrepit. She says, but first go to your swineherd. He's loyal to you. Okay? Stay with him, question him. She says, I'm going to go off to Sparta. I'm going to spur Telemachus to come back. And Odysseus asks a very natural question. Why not tell him? Why not tell Telemachus, he says, knowing my whole story as you do? Must he traverse the barren sea, he too, and live in pain while others feed on what is his? She says, don't worry, I sent him off myself. Why? To make his name in foreign parts. So that when he comes back, the suitors will know. Well, Telemachus isn't a boy anymore. Look at that. He took a boat. He commanded men. He went off on a journey. He came back. Okay, like it's not to Troy and back, but it's still a journey. The young bucks here, I know, 495 or so, lie in wait for him in a cutter, bent on murdering him before he reaches home. Don't think they will. So she touches him with her wand, like the magic fairy, and he now looks totally different. Go on to 14. About 10 minutes. We're told he goes up to the hovel where the swineherd lives. Of all Odysseus' field hands in the old days, this forester cared most for the estate. Now, that can mean he was going to work the hardest for the entire estate. It could also mean he loves the estate most, and Odysseus. So, page 447, he turns to Odysseus, sees him not as Odysseus, but as the old man, when Odysseus shows up, dogs growling, and says, you might have got a ripping, man. 2 shakes more and a pretty mess for me, you could have called it. He says, I hang on here, my master gone, true king that he was, still mourning for him, raising pigs of his to feed foreigners, and who knows where the man is, in some far country among strangers, if he's still living. So why does he keep raising the pigs? In the hopes that Odysseus is not dead. You're a wanderer too, Eumaeus says. You must eat something, drink some wine, tell me where you're from, the hard times you've seen. So he leads Odysseus to his own home. And Odysseus says, may Zeus and all the gods give you your heart's desire for taking me in so kindly, friend. So, what social status is the swineherd? He's way down at the bottom. And he's taking somebody in who is where on that social status? In appearance, at least. At the bottom. I mean, in his disguise form, Odysseus is the lowest of the low. He has no home. He has no belongings. He's a nobody. Okay? And Eumaeus says, rudeness to a stranger is not decency. Poor though he may be, poorer than you. Compare that with the suitors. All wanderers and beggars come from Zeus. And it really struck me reading, especially, going back a little bit earlier, but more so 14 through 18 or 14 through 19, how repeatedly Homer is beating this idea of hospitality into his hearers' minds. It's almost as if, I'm going to go way out on a limb here, it's almost as if Homer, or whoever composed this, in the 8th century is seeing a falling away from this kind of hospitality and is trying to build it back up. How? In the national characters of the past, so to speak. All wanderers and beggars come from Zeus. What we can give is slight but well meant. All we dare. You know that is the way of slaves who live in dread of masters, new ones like our own. He says, I told you, the gods hindered our Lord's return. He used to like me. He would have pensioned me with acres, my own house, a wife. But that's not how it happened. No, the man's gone. Line 77 or so. God cursed the race of Helen and cut it down, that wrung the strength out of the knees of many. Remember, Telemachus has been talking with Helen. And he went too for the honor of Agamemnon. Okay? So he gives Odysseus meat and wine. He says all the really good stuff has been taken by the suitors. Line 99. But now they've heard some word, some oracle of my lord's death, being so unconcerned to pay court properly or to go about their business. He's saying they act like they know Odysseus is dead. Why? Because they don't show any proper respect. Either to, why are you doing that? To wanderers, okay, or to the people in Penelope's own home. All they want is to prey on his estate. And he says, in fact, only an estate, only a kingdom like Odysseus's could have survived. He is that wealthy. And Odysseus, while the swineherd is speaking, told, inwardly his thought shaped woe and ruin for the suitors. He's already planning what he's going to do. So he asks, who is this Lord who once acquired you? That is, who are you slave to? Who's your master? I may have met him, or someone who knew about him. Who knows? Well, his man and his lady will put no stock in any news of him brought by a rover. And he talks about his master and his master's lady, and he talks for 20 lines before he finally says, nearly 30 lines. It's the lost man I ache to think of, Odysseus. See, when he says that name, everybody would have known about Odysseus. Not because of the travels that he's endured for the last 10 years, but because everybody in the various islands of Greece knew the names of the heroes who went off to the Trojan War. They knew what had occurred in the Trojan War because of the men that have trickled back. Okay? They know about the horse and such. I speak the name respectfully, even if he is not here. He loved me, cared for me. I call him my dear Lord, far though he be. And Odysseus says, your Lord is near at hand. Surprise, he doesn't do that. He says, I expect when he gets back, Zeus be my witness, and the table garnished for true friends and Odysseus' own heart. By heaven, all I say will come to pass. He will return, and he will be avenged on any who dishonor his wife and son. And Eumaeus says, no, can't be. No oaths, line 190. If Odysseus can come again, God send he may. My wish is for Penelope and Laertes and Prince Telemachus. In other words, I don't think he's still alive. My thoughts are towards them. Yeah, he's another one to be distressed. Telemachus. By the God's grace he grew, he says, a tough sapling. And I thought he'd be no less a man than his great father. Strong, admirably made. But someone made him rash. Why? Because he sailed away. He's not here. He's gone to Pylos. But tell me your problems. Tell me your troubles. It's like, a self-help therapy group. And tell me truly first, for I should know, who are you? Where do you hail from? Where's your home and family? What kind of ship? What brought you here? Who are your sailors? He's one man, right? And he's dressed like a beggar. So Odysseus says, even if we could sit here a year, I couldn't tell you my whole story. Okay? But he says, for the first time, I'm from Crete. He's going to tell Telemachus he's from Crete. He's going to tell, not Persephone, Penelope, he's from Crete. Okay? So he tells this big, long tale. And he says, I heard about Odysseus. Then he tells a little bit about what had happened to Odysseus. And we'll stop with this, about line 400 or so, 402. Eumaeus says, that tale about Odysseus, though you might have spared me. In other words, don't believe it. You will not make me believe that. Why lie? Why do that? And all for nothing. Surely the gods turned on him to refuse him death in the field or in his friends' arms. No, storm winds made off with him. No glory came to him. So when we pick up on Thursday, and we'll finish no matter what, on Thursday, and I'll hand out the exam. We're going to pick up with right here in book 14, around line 430.